You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning. It's April the 7th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How you doing?
Good morning, Al. I'm doing pretty well, adjusting to Nova Scotia times again. How are you?
And probably weather, too.
Oh, we won't even get into that. I left BC in sunshine and 15 degrees, and I got off the plane to freezing rain and 0.
Hey, aren't you lucky?
The funny thing is, the people I flew home with, about 12 hours before the flight, they messaged everybody saying freezing rain in Montreal, and there's supposed to be snow in Nova Scotia, so you can delay for up to a week if you want at no penalty cost.
Oh,
and I sat there tapping my fingers going, I should. And the first 2 days after I left BC, it was like 19 and sunny. And I'm like, why the frig did I come home?
Oh, yeah. And never mind flying with the stress, knowing that it's freezing rain down out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I got home, and it's definitely colder here. I left BC, and BC is about a month and a half ahead of us, really. Flowers were out, daisies, like wildflowers and daisies were growing. The cherry trees were all full of blossoms. The birds were mating, and babies were there. And it was spring in full-fledged going.
Spring. It was spring.
It was spring. And I came back home to fall or winter.
Well, I've seen some buds starting to show up on a tree outside our window. So.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah, we're not that far behind, but it's far enough that it's really noticeable when you go from one to the other.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
This time of year.
For sure. All righty. What do you say we get into the news?
Yeah.
All right. First story's up.
Coming to us from Mugglehead Magazine, Canada's Psychedelics Trade Association calls on party leaders to cut red tape as election nears.
That's right. Election just around the corner. Canada's one and only Psychedelics Trade Association posted a bulletin this week calling on candidates for the Prime Minister's offices to make a psychedelic medicines more easily accessible. With the federal election approaching, it was an opportune time, the organization felt. For the past 4 years, the Trudeau government has shown little interest in doing so. Psychedelics Canada highlighted, despite a growing body of evidence showcasing the efficacy these treatments can have.
Absolutely. Instead of offering patients hope and relief for a strained healthcare system grappling with a worsening mental health and opiate crisis, the Trudeau government has lately chosen inaction. This is coming from Psychedelics Canada Executive Director Liam Bedard. PsyCan is deeply concerned that Canada is falling behind in the psychoactive therapeutic sector in comparison to countries like the United States and Australia. In the U.S., Oregon and Colorado have fully legalized psilocybin therapy, while other states like Washington have implemented progressive decriminalization measures.
Meanwhile, Australia now benefits from an authorized prescriber scheme enabling the physician-recommended uses of magic mushrooms and MDMA. The only means of legally assessing psychedelic therapies in Canada at the moment is through the nation's cumbersome Special Access Program known as SAP, and a lot of people have a problem with it. Clinical trials or Section 56 exemption. Few, if ever, receive SAP authorization or a government exemption.
Yeah, and I think with the bringing on of the SAP, they got rid of Section 56 for psychedelics, I think. If I remember how we reported it about a year or so ago.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. This election offers all parties the chance to reset and chart a course for the future, SciCan board chair Nick Kaddish said. If Canada wishes to be globally competitive, we have to bring new treatments into the healthcare system to help patients. In a recent interview, Kaddish, I guess, explained that a lack of government progression in regulating psychedelic treatments has left many investors disillusioned and frustrated.
Yeah, he goes on to say that I think there was a huge boom about 3 or 4 years ago now where really on and truly there was probably too much investment, like way too much investment. Sounds like the cannabis end of things. This left a sour taste in the mouth of many investors about the psychedelic sector, Kaddish highlighted.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of psychedelic medicine facilitators are now moving to Mexico.
There you go.
Yeah, they're switching it down to Mexico where things, are legal.
Yeah.
Currently serves as the CEO of Pharmala Biotech Holdings, one of the world's leading MDMA producers. Pharmala has supplied clinical trials in multiple countries with its GMP product. Toronto-based SciCan, with Kaddish helps lead, recently partnered with Psychedelic Industries UK in Britain and the Psychedelic Medicine Coalition in Washington, D.C. to work towards mutual goals.
How's that? Cyan UK, PsyCan, and PMC, which are all short forms, remain committed to creating a future where psychedelic medicine is accessible, safe, and effective in those who need it the most. That's PMC founder Melissa Levezani said that back in January. Now, MAPS Canada, the nonprofit Therasville, and Heroic Hearts Project are notable advocacy partners of Psych Canada.
Yeah. Last fall, Bedard led a press conference calling on government regulators to provide funding for veterans seeking psychedelic therapy for mental health disorders. Absolutely. He said, Liam Bedard said in a tweet, it looks like here, or I guess that's X these days, I recently had the privilege of standing with combat veterans at a press conference at the Parliament of Canada, calling on Veterans Affairs Canada to fully reimburse the cost of life-saving psychedelic assisted therapies for veterans. Hallelujah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yes, exactly.
In that case, I have a couple of things that, things that I should apply for to have refunded.
Yeah.
Well,
it'd be great. We're seeing that happening down in the U.S. and a lot of the states, and there's no reason why it can't help. Happen right here in Canada.
Yep.
As well. Like it's if it's helping veterans, it's helping more than just veterans, other people as well.
Yep, 100%.
It's an alternative therapy, and if it works, it works.
And it does.
So, all righty, on to the next story.
Coming to us from News Medical Life Sciences, medicinal cannabis may help reduce cravings and improve recovery times.
A new pilot study by the UBC Okanagan and Thompson Rivers University examined how medical supervised cannabis use in residential recovery home may support people in treatment for substance use challenges. Participants reported that cannabis helped them manage pain, anxiety, depression, and sleep issues, key symptoms that can help complicate recovery.
Yes. Our findings suggest medical cannabis could play a meaningful role in reducing cravings and improving retention in recovery programs. Participants clearly indicated benefits in managing both physical and psychological challenges during recovery. This was Dr. Zach Walsh, who is a psychology professor at the UBC Okanagan and co-lead in this. Users also reported reduced cravings for opiates and other harmful substances, improved pain management, and enhanced mental health and sleep quality.
Shout out to the cannabis substitution programs.
Yes.
Exactly. However, stigma surrounding cannabis use remains a significant barrier, according to the research. Staff interviews revealed a need for increased education and better integration into the cannabis treatment approach.
Absolutely. I know people that can help you out there in BC, all kinds of them.
Yeah.
Reducing stigma through targeted education for program staff is critical, says Dr. Florin Fair, who is the co-lead researcher and nursing professor at Thompson Rivers University. Staff skepticism often comes from misunderstandings about cannabis as a legitimate medical treatment, highlighting a clear opportunity for improvement in recovery support. Education, education, education.
That's right. The study recently published in the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs was conducted by researchers from the UBC, Okanagan, and Thompson Rivers University. This collaboration between institutions in Kelowna and Kamloops sought to better understand patient and staff experiences with medically supervised cannabis use in a supportive recovery environment.
It examined patient and staff experiences at Maverick Supportive Recovery, a residential recovery center in the BC interior. From what I hear, Maverick is really amazing too. Residential recovery centers provide structured live-in environments where people receive treatment and support to manage substance use disorders.
While the results are promising, researchers emphasize the need for larger scale studies to fully assess the benefits and risks of incorporating medical cannabis into a substance use recovery programs. This study was funded by Interior University's Research Coalition and the BC Ministry of Health. Dr. Farron is to present the findings to the International Council of Nurses and Congress in Helsinki this June.
Amazing.
Yes.
True is also planning the Medical Cannabis and Recovery Forum on Saturday, April 26. This forum is open to the public, healthcare professionals, and researchers interested in cannabis and recovery solutions. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. That comes right from the University of British Columbia, Okanagan campus, right from them themselves, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. And
Wow.
I know that we're going to be reading similar stories coming up because, as I said, the report's coming out in June, and I'm sure that we will be catching that report as well.
Wow. I just keep saying wow, and I've got so many examples that run through my head. We have a host here on our station that has 2 daughters that could truly benefit from know the recovery homes, gaining this knowledge. Wow. Good. I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. All righty, here we go. On to the next story that might get a little bit.
Yeah, might get Cindy chatting a little bit more than usual, which is not good. Coming to us from StratCan, new Nova Scotia cannabis regulations support community-run stores in Mi'kmaq communities.
Here we go. The new regulations introduced in Nova Scotia will allow Mi'kmaq communities to open legal community-owned cannabis retail stores on reserves by agreement with the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation. The provincial government made the announcement on April the 4th. The new regulations will allow a band or a band-owned corporation to become an authorized seller within their community through an agreement with the NSLC to set up a legal retail store.
Wow. Wow. I got so much I could say. The NSLC remains the only authorized cannabis seller in Nova Scotia. Any cannabis stores in Mi'kmaq communities will sell cannabis purchased through the NSLC. Any cannabis stores will sell cannabis purchased. I think there's a word missing there. I think will be allowed to sell cannabis purchased through the NSLC. The NSLC currently operates only 50 legal cannabis stores in the province. I honestly thought it was 49. So I don't know where the new 50th one is, but I did not know that. The provincial government says it currently has no plans to authorize other third-party cannabis sellers. Which is fine, but now they're going to give the Mi'kmaqis standalone cannabis stores, and in the rest of Nova Scotia, we only have one standalone cannabis store out of the 50, and the rest of them are closets in the back of liquor stores. 8 First Nations in Nova Scotia are part of the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. Mi'kmaq refers to the Indigenous people of the Atlantic provinces of Canada. Mi'kmaq is the singular form, which can also be used as an adjective, as in Mi'kmaq communities. Representatives from these communities were not immediately available for comment as of press time.
There is currently one on-reserve NSLC location that sells cannabis in Nova Scotia. It opened in At-Eze, Escazone in Cape Breton. That was back in September of 2022. Now, according to Timothy Holman, he's the Minister of Environment and Climate Change on behalf of John Lower of Minister of Finance and Treasury Board, says we've spoken with Mi'kmaq leaders across the province, and they have raised concerns about the sale of illegal cannabis in their communities. These changes will allow bands to open a legal store for those who wish to buy and use cannabis.
Okay. There are a number of Indigenous-owned stores on reserve lands that have had the permission from band and council. So I find that particular comment very interesting. The regulations require cannabis to be retailed in a socially responsible manner. Authorized Mi'kmaq sellers must sell cannabis in its original package, sell no more than 30 grams of dried cannabis or the equivalent in one transaction, only sell at authorized permanent location, allow no sampling on the premises. And Al?
Display a certificate issued by the NSLC indicating they are authorized cannabis sellers. Follow the NSLC's responsible retail training guidelines, ensuring cannabis products aren't sold to minors or those who are impaired, and follow all Health Canada requirements. That would mean that they could only sell 10 milligram products, and not the higher dosing stuff as well, right?
Yeah. Nova Scotia sold 32.6 million worth of cannabis in the second quarter of 2024. Just so you have half an idea, 30, 60, 120, probably $130 million worth per year on average based on that number.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I know here in Ontario there are some First Nation lands reserves that have the provincial stores in them, and then obviously we got lots that don't, right?
Oh, yeah, you have two beautiful what we've deemed the Green Miles with
Tyaganaga,
yeah,
and Alderville.
Yeah, it's I love both. I just love going and driving them. It's beautiful. I drove Alderville one time with a former host, Craig, and I mean I think we counted like 52 dispensaries or something crazy like that along the 2 kilometers there.
I know, eh?
That was a few years ago. I think some have closed. And
there's some now that got gas stations on them. They've grown, and
yeah. So I'll do another video when I drive across Canada this summer.
All right, sounds good. Okay, I will get the next story lined up, and we will jump into that before we go to break. This is the last story for break, and you, I know when you saw this, you went, "Wow, here we go."
Yeah, coming to us from the Hamilton Spectator, psychedelic research led by Queen's professor earns Canadian Cancer Society grant.
All right, who would expect that? Really, no wonder you went, "Wow." Yep, the Canadian Cancer Society has announced new grant funding for research in the treatment of people with advanced cancer, including research of psychedelic-assisted cancer therapy that is led in part by a Queen's psychiatry professor. The project, led by Queen's Dr. Ronald Shore and Dr. Linda Carlson of the University of Calgary, focused on using psilocybin-assisted therapy to help treat feelings of anxiety, depression, and hopelessness that can be commonly experienced by patients living with advanced cancer.
Yeah. There was a documentary done by 2 beautiful Canadian gentlemen from Vancouver. They did 2 documentaries. The second one that they did called Dosed 2, Trip of a Lifetime. That's what they did is they followed a lady with terminal cancer that was told she had months to live and helped treat her with psilocybin to accept her fate. She also worked with cannabis oil. And by the way, years later, the lady is still alive, which is really awesome. The $5 million granted to the project by the CCS is part of a total $17.9 million broken up into 3 CCS breakthrough team grants, with each focusing on priorities identified by people with lived experience of cancer. The grant represents the single largest investment into psychedelic research in Canada.
Dr. Ron Shore from the Queen's Department of Psychiatry says the funding makes possible a 5-year program that will allow investigation of needs to be very thorough and will spend a lot of time focused on training for clinicians. While there are many trials exploring the benefits of using psilocybin as a tool while treating illnesses, including cancer, Dr. Shore says this could allow for a more comprehensive, long-term look at that when it comes to advanced cancer patients.
There are all kinds of one and done. You go in, you test something, you leave, and this is something that just is going to have much more impact, Dr. Shore said. It's going to have a lot more thoughtfulness behind it. So as a researcher, it's super exciting to be part of this. I bet it is.
I bet. The research will explore how psilocybin combined with mindfulness can help advanced cancer patients dealing with demoralization and will build off other research that Dr. Shore says has shown promising outcomes for patients with other illnesses dealing with demoralization. Clinical trials likely won't happen until year 3 of the project's term, with the first couple of years being focused on building a network and collaborating with stakeholders and developing a training and education curriculum.
Dr. Shore says officially having those guidelines around training published will be a first and a huge step towards a huge step forward for the integration of psychedelic assisted treatments in Canada. It'll be the first time that we've had evidence-based psilocybin therapy guidelines developed, Dr. Shore said.
Yeah, he goes on to say that would be a real legacy piece from this we'll have a standard kind of practitioner training guidelines. It'll be definitely shift how we think about psychedelic therapy. We'll have a whole lot more trained and educated people, and we'll know a lot more even just through the first few years of the funding. Dr. Shore says when the time comes, he doesn't anticipate finding trial participants to be difficult. No. I completely agree with him there. Probably the only disappointing about that is that it's going to take so long.
It is, yeah. I mean, like it's been something that coming from the legacy world as we are. Yeah, we've been able to open our eyes and watch and see what cannabis or psilocybin or MDMA or 5-MeO or any of the psychedelics, what they can offer. We've watched from the inside, and we also know that the people, these earth medicines that have lineages, they have been writing down for hundreds of years what this medicine does. And that's why they have a lineage, and that's why they get used by these tribes. So there's all of that research too, which isn't official, but it's still there and we get to see it. And the governments are they're finally stepping in and catching up, but you're right. It's going to take them forever.
Forever, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just the first thing is the time. So, all right, break time. Halfway through our stories, we got 4 more to go. We'll be right back. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
We're back with psychedelics and cannabis educational news. We've got, 4 more stories to cover, Cindy?
We do.
Alrighty.
We do.
Huh? We do.
We have 4 more, and it's an awesome day to cover them. So.
Yes, it is. It is. Exactly. All righty. Here we go. First story of the second half is up.
Coming to us from Marijuana Moment, an ointment with cannabis compounds CBD and CBG can effectively treat symptoms of eczema, study shows.
All right. There we go. Authors of a new report on cannabinoids and atopic dermatitis, also called eczema, says their study demonstrated that an ointment including CBD and CBG are effective in reducing itching and improving the quality of life of patients, leading to symptom remission in some cases. Published in the Journal of Clinical Cosmetic and Investigational Dermatology, the original research looked at a number of metrics of skin health, including hydration, sebum level, and pH in 9 adult patients diagnosed with atopic dermatitis.
The transdermal ointment was used as an alternative to conventional auxiliary therapies during both flare-ups and remission from May to July of 2022. This is coming from the team. The results we achieved included improved skin hydration, sebum level, and TWEL, which is water loss, as well as a reduced redness in the studied areas, which was forearms. AD, or eczema, is the most common chronic and relapsing non-contagious inflammatory skin condition, and that was noted by the authors.
The ointment itself consisted of 30% CBD, 50% CBG, hemp seed oil, and cholesterol. Patients were instructed to apply a generous layer of the ointment to the same site once daily before sleep, and to cover the area with the wet wrap dressing to enhance its effectiveness and protect bed sheets, it says. Photos and other metrics observed a marked improvement in skin appearance and health over a 3-month period. Authors wrote that their preliminary analysis of the results showed that the topical delivery of the ointment compounded with cannabis sativa L, sativa oil, cholesterol ointment, 30% CBD, 50% or 5% CBG, led to the remission of skin lesions on the forearms of the included patients.
Patients who better adhered to the treatment regime, they added, demonstrated greater improvement. In the course of the therapy, patients adhering to the topical cannabinoid regime achieved satisfactory skin parameters, including normal skin hydration and sebum levels, as well as improved TWEL and erythema, which is, the redness is gone. The study says, as opposed to patients who reported failure to comply with the regime owing to the fatty texture of the formulation, despite the instructions they received.
Authors, a 5 research team from the Medical University of Silesa in Poland and the Montfort University of Leicester in the UK, noted that one complication of the findings may be that the study was performed from May to July of 2022, a season when AD frequently enters remission. The new research comes on the heels of another recent study suggested CBD could be a useful addition to certain skin products, given its anti-aging and antitoxin properties, as well as evidence that it may speed the healing of the wounds.
Absolutely. Authors of that study from Prince of Slanka University and the National Science and Technology Development Agency in Thailand wrote that CBD appeared to influence a range of skin processes, making it, quote unquote, an appealing natural ingredient for the development of cosmetalities.
Overall,
right,
overall, we suggest that CBD exhibits many potential characteristics that can be used to develop a topical cosmetic products. Are you going to say that's a pharmaceutical version of a cosmetic?
Yes.
Yeah. Such as skin protection products, hair care products, and wound healing products, the study says. Now, a separate study published last year into cannabinoid therapy in skin wounds, meanwhile, found that cannabis oil may help promote wound healing, noting that promising benefits despite a need to better optimize product formulations.
For years, I've been putting cannabis oil instead of polysporin on cuts and putting a Band-Aid over it. It works. It's great. Another paper published last July in the Journal of American Academy of Dermatology found that applying CBD-infused lotion to the skin appeared to be tied to lower risk of damage from exposure to UV rays. Researchers at George Washington University, Northwestern University, and the University of Miami, and the Center for Clinical and Cosmetic Research, wrote that 21% of those who used CBD cream had less damage than the control group that received a placebo. Another 47% had comparable damage, and 11% showed better results after taking the placebo versus the cannabis lotion. The possible benefits aren't limited to human applications.
Yeah, because a separate study published in the Journal of Frontiers in Veterinary Science last year concluded that cannabis appears to be a viable alternative treatment option for dogs suffering from common skin disease, especially if they experience adverse side effects from conventional steroid therapies. That study detailed the efficacy of full-spectrum CBD oil on a dog with the autoimmune disease discoid lupus. Yeah, it's called DLE. The condition which causes hair loss and redness that could progress to lesions, typically treated with cortisone steroids and other medications that can put a strain on a dog's liver.
A veterinarian prescribed a full spectrum oil with a 2-to-1 THC CBD ratio, which was administered orally at first, 1 drop per day for 3 days, and gradually increasing it until the optimal dose for symptom control was identified. Within a few weeks, the dog exhibited significant improvement in dermatological signs, accompanied by a concurrent improvement in liver function, the study said. Interestingly, the owner reported an improvement in the dog's behavior shortly after discontinuing the prednisone, and within the first day of receiving the cannabis oil.
First day of receiving the oil. Nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anointment. A little bit of, CBD and CBG.
It's really amazing to see these studies happening. I wish that they had happened years ago, and I wish that they would happen quicker. Reading this, I have been watching a couple of dogs at West. Sadly, they have both passed now, but they both got an extra 3 years of life thanks to cannabis. Cannabis ointment shrunk their tumors from the outside. Cannabis oil worked from the inside to help them. And it's just literally 3 years of watching a miracle happen. And it's nice to see veterinarians and government catching up.
I think one of those dogs is in one of our ads.
She sure is. She absolutely is. And she's even got products named after her. Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. On to the next story we go.
Coming to us from RNZ in New Zealand. Medicinal cannabis users worried about new drug driving rules.
Yeah, we even had that right here in good old Canada as well with our program. So, all right, here we go. A survivor of abuse in state care is worried new drug driving laws mean he could be banned from taking the wheel due to his use of medicinal cannabis. Tony Jarvis said he uses prescribed products to ease his PTSD or PTSI for injury, not disorder, which stems from his abuse, and he now feels like the state is after him again.
Yeah, the new law passed last week, supported by the government coalition's parties and Labor, coming into effect on the 1st of April next year. It allows police to do random roadside tests. If a driver has 2 positive screening tests, they are banned from getting behind the wheel for 12 hours. This is said to address immediate safety concerns.
Drivers who return a positive result will then have their saliva samples sent to a lab, and if it finds certain drugs present, they are being fined or issued demerit points. Medical cannabis is a defense that only once an infringement notice is received and not from the 12-hour ban, which has left Jarvis worried.
Yeah. Just weeks away from receiving a King's Service Medal for his fight for justice for state abuse victims, he is one of about 100,000 medicinal cannabis prescription users who could be caught out by the new law. Medicinal cannabis has been legal in New Zealand for about 7 years, and for the past 4, Jarvis has used prescribed products as other medication was not working for him, leaving him groggy.
He says, I use it every night for sleep. I use it every day for sleep at night. The reason I do is for 30 plus years, I used to wake up to nightmares, terror, panic, anxiety, extreme levels, sweating and gasping for air, waking up to the dreams of me as a 9-year-old boy in Cherry Farm Asylum. There, along with other institutions, the Invergirl man was abused.
With the medical cannabis, I take it at night. I sleep. I don't wake up anymore. It's a godsend for my mental health. And probably the sleep is what's really, truly helping. I'm not waking up to those adult patients doing what they did to a 9-year-old boy. So I have a better quality of life. I'm resting. I'm sleeping.
Since he heard about the law change, his anxiety has returned, as Jarvis was uncertain where he and other medical users of cannabis products stood. Here's a ride program. He says, if I get pulled over and this comes out, what does this do to my integrity as a King's Service Medal recipient for what I've done for 50 years? Does it tarnish my image? Do people say, oh, he's just a pothead? I don't need that. I'm a patient.
Jarvis and his medication said his medication came with a warning not to drive for 6 hours after use, and that's what he's done. As did an Alexandria man, Corey Potter. He uses cannabis products to help manage his multiple sclerosis symptoms.
He says, when I do test positive, what happens then? I know I'm not impaired. I know I can drive my car. If I was impaired by my medications, I wouldn't be driving, just like any other medication you get prescribed by your doctors. I don't understand why they're making medical cannabis so different to all the other medications.
A 12-hour stand down from driving would have a big effect on family life, as he cannot transport his daughter, he said. I am mobile, but not really, really mobile. I can walk 1,000 meters, and I'm pretty shattered after. It would limit me quite badly in what I could get to and what I could get. Traces of cannabis can be detected in the system for several days after it's consumed.
I know a truck driver, 31 days. When? Right here on the network. But Transport Minister Chris Bishop said the new regime targeted recent rather than historical drug use and roadside screening devices, would detect concentration levels showing recent use. Similarly, laboratory tests will only return positive results where the drug concentration level detected is above a threshold that indicates recent drug use.
The police have said that in 2021, 93 people were killed in crashes where a driver was found to have drugs in their system. A third of all fatalities. Doesn't say what drugs, though. New Zealand Medicinal Cannabis Council Executive Director Sally King said the intent of the change was right and no one should drive while impaired.
But she said it ignored evidence about the effect of cannabis while driving and was poor law. It doesn't address considerable uncertainty about impairment levels when using cannabis-derived medicines.
Yeah, the saliva test is a test for evidence of use. It's not a test of impairment. In the case of many cannabis-derived medicines, you can still see evidence of use long after impairment, as well as the 100,000 New Zealanders taking prescribed cannabis medication. Another 200,000 were thought to use it for medical reasons, he said.
The government has said it would undertake about 5,000 road tests a year, or 50,000 road tests a year. NZ Drug Formation Chief Executive Sarah Helm said medicinal cannabis was prescribed to treat a range of problems such as chronic pain, insomnia, inflammatory conditions, and anxiety.
More than 70% of the medical cannabis supplied last year contained THC, which could result in a positive result on a roadside saliva test, even up to 3 days after use for some people. A police spokesperson said officers would start testing their new enforcement tool in December ahead of next year's rollout.
Please always undertake impaired driving testing for alcohol and drugs. The further addition of roadside drug driving testing to our existing practices about ensuring that we have the tools to deter and detect those drivers that are over a level that is considered unsafe to drive. Operational discussions remain ongoing related to the medical defense. However, if a person is prescribed medicinal cannabis and they have a current and valid prescription and take the medicine as prescribed, then it's unlikely they'll have a breach the new drug driving provisions. What do you think?
I don't know. I when Canada was coming up to legalization, so we're going back to 2015, 2016, I did use more cannabis back then. But I applied and was invited to be part of a couple of studies where they were testing roadside tests.
Yeah.
And they were like, the tests were like completely and utterly way off. I made sure to not smoke anything from one of them, or eat anything. From the night before. It was a, midday test, right? They were providing lunch and the whole thing. So I decided to go without that day. And I got up there, when we had lunch and we talked and they explained everything to us. And then we did our tests. And they looked at me and they're like, wow. And I'm like, what? They're like, you're really impaired. And I'm like, absolutely no way. I haven't done anything since last night. And this is what I took last night. This is what I smoked last night. And it was 10 p.m. last night that I did it. Like I had, taken notes. So it was, I don't trust them because I saw the proof from myself that they just don't work.
They don't work. Yeah, there's been a lot of...
but something could have changed. They could have gotten better technology. But what I saw 9 years ago, what I saw... It wasn't very good. It picked up that I used it, but it was, any detection whatsoever. It was saying, "Oh my God, this person's
well." As the rep there said, it shows recent use, but doesn't show impairment.
No.
And the 5 nanograms in our blood is an arbitrary number.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Alrighty.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. On to the next story. Here we go.
Coming to us from StratCan, outdoor micros now included in New Brunswick Farm Assistance Program.
Yeah, outdoor micro cultivators in New Brunswick can now apply for financial assistance under a provincial program to help farmers. New Brunswick's Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership, part of a 5-year, $3.5 billion agreement between the federal, provincial, and territorial governments, was recently extended to now include micro cannabis cultivators growing outdoors. The program aims to strengthen the competitiveness, innovation, and resiliency of the agricultural, agri-food, and agri-based products sector. Gee, isn't that nice? Hear them
Go
talk
New
about
Brunswick.
cannabis as an agricultural product.
They have been leading in this kind of stuff right from the beginning. They were one of the first provinces to offer farm gate as well, and I've had the luxury of going to a couple of those stores. So good on New Brunswick. This is amazing. The cross jurisdictional agreement includes $1 billion in federal programs and activities and $2.5 billion in cost shared programs and activities funded by federal, provincial, and territorial governments. Adam Hicks, founder and head grower at Green Rose Farms, a micro located near Sackville, New Brunswick, told StratCan he recently learned the program now includes micro cultivators after reaching out to the provincial minister of agriculture, aquaculture, and fisheries, who is Pat Finnegan.
In a reply to an email that Finnegan sent to Hicks on March the 10th, Hicks said the department recently determined that holders of federal micro cultivation licenses are eligible to apply for financial assistance under New Brunswick's Strategic Initiative SCAP programs. The provincial program provides support for New Brunswick fruit and mixed vegetable producers who want to increase production by providing financial assistance for the adoption of season extension and controlled environment agricultural technologies, the advancement of storage facilities, and investment in on-farm equipment to improve efficacies and build production capacity.
A media representative with the Provincial Agriculture, Aquaculture, and Fisheries Agency confirmed to StratCan that the decision to include micro cultivators was recently shared by Minister Hicks and that no micros have yet applied under the program. Outdoor micro cultivators can apply for non-repayable financial assistance under New Brunswick's Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership Strategic Innovative Programs. Holy, that's a long title, confirms Heather Pert, the department's director of communications. Each program has specific eligible criteria. And, you know, if you click a link, you can see the program details.
And I see that big words, non-repayable financial assistance. No, that sounds like free money.
Yeah. That's a lot of help. And I really am excited in the future to report on this particular licensed producer, outdoor micro cultivator, was the first to apply and receive. I'm really excited for that.
Now, they add that the application can be submitted anytime, but some programs have an application deadline, noting that the program applies to outdoor micro cultivators only.
Yes. Yeah. So New Brunswick outdoor cultivators, get those apps in. We can't wait to see it.
Yeah, we've helped spread the word. Now it's time for you guys to get them in there. Yeah. All right. Last story of the day is coming up, and it is almost loaded. And there it goes.
There it goes. Coming to us from Marijuana Moment, Canada's retail cannabis expansion came with only modest increases to use, new studies show.
There we go. Ever since recreational cannabis was legalized across Canada in 2018, researchers have been studying what the decision changed for Canadians. We've learned, for example, that some patients immediately left the medical cannabis system, presumably to use recreational products instead. Or maybe the doctor told them, why sign the paperwork when you can just go to the store and get it there? Which did happen. Conversely, legalization appeared to have no effect on Canadian alcohol sales.
We've similarly seen how cannabis retailing has evolved since it became legal. Retailers suffered from product shortages during legalization's first 6 months, but steadily expanded soon after. Canada went from having some 210 stores. Canada went from having some 210 stores across the country in April of 2019 to 3,500 stores in April of 2023. And I think half of those are in Ontario. Ensuing competition pushed prices down 28% during that period.
And probably where most of the First Nation stores are too. Meanwhile, provincial governments have tried various regulatory approaches. Some initially restricted the number of stores to avoid tempting non-users. Quebec still has 10 times fewer stores per capita than Ontario does as a result. Other provinces have set minimum prices to discourage people from overindulging. For example, Ontario won't let wholesale prices drop below $2.28 per gram. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, but interesting. Things that make you go, these developments in business and government policy prompted my latest research. I wanted to understand what effect retail expansion had on cannabis use. To do this, I analyzed consumer responses on government surveys collected between 19 and 23. I then compare these responses to the Recreational Cannabis Consumer Price Index and the number of licensed stores in each province. Did Canadians consume cannabis more widely, more frequently, at younger ages as it became more accessible and affordable? The answer was mostly no.
No. Percentage of men who used cannabis stayed around 28% between 2019 and 2023, despite retailers' massive store growth and notable price cuts. But usage did slightly grow slightly among women, raising from 21% in 2019 to 23% in 2023. By analysis suggests this was related to the increasing affordability of cannabis, not its retail convenience. More women consumed cannabis when prices fell, not when more shops opened.
Interesting. A similar contrast appeared between younger and older adults. Cannabis use among Canadians aged 25 and over crept upward from 21 to 23%. That increase again seemed related to falling prices rather than expanding stores. Meanwhile, usage among those aged 16 to 24 varied year to year, but remained around 46%. I just want to I don't think how many stores makes a difference because people are going to drive. I think the only difference that made is in how long people drove and how much gas they used, to be honest, right? The average age of first-time use consequently rose from 19.2 in 2019 to 20.8 years old in 2023. This finding also seemed correlated with both falling prices and expanding stores.
So the first-time users' age got older in that span, not younger, like some people would think.
I was expecting it to get older. Our younger minds are, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm going to go do it then. And we start to lose that. And I think if we make things legal, the kids aren't going to be as apt to go after it.
Because it's not something they can go up and break the law type thing. Yeah. However, the product's preferences shifted, they said. The percentage who smoked dried cannabis decreased, while the percentage of consumers who consumed edibles increased. Some consumers used both types of products or used other products entirely, such as vapes. Both changes seemed related to prices rather than the number of retail stores. Consumers seemingly traded up from basic dried cannabis to processed edibles as prices fell.
So overall, Canada's substantial retail developments came with only modest usage growth. The apparent relationships between usage and price might be partly, coincidental. Product selection and quality also improved, so they likely contributed too. But falling prices do seem to be a plausible explanation for the increased cannabis consumption that was seen.
The lack of relationship between stores and users might seem surprising. After all, Canada experienced a 16-fold explosion in stores between 2019 and 2023, but the findings correlate with what my previous research found. It showed that between 2018 and 2020, there was a similar non-relationship between retail expansion of cannabis stores and usage.
Yeah. So perhaps the main effect of retail stores was to draw existing users away from illegal dealers rather than to tempt new ones, which is true. And I've got to say that when legalization first hit us and the product that was in the stores had been sitting around for anywhere between 6 months to 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And it was dry and it was terrible and there was no choices. And I could go on with negativeness about it. But since we have gone from October of 2018 to we are now April of 2025, things have changed. Things have changed hardcore. There's still some of that bad product out there, but it is slowly getting weeded out by people making complaints, sending product back, which you can get refunds for bad product, by the way. So people are doing that, and messages are becoming clear with that, and therefore products are improving. And that's kind of a good thing. I mean, yeah. I suspect retailers probably influenced usage somewhat in their local neighborhoods. For example, someone who walked by a new store daily on their way to work might have decided to try cannabis, but this effect would have been too small to appear in provincial level measurements.
The findings from the study suggest some tentative lessons for regulators. In opening more stores has minimal impact on usage. There's little need to limit their numbers. Provinces don't need to ration store licenses, and municipalities like Markham, Oakville, and Ontario don't need to ban them. But since price declines tempt more consumers, it's important for policymakers to prevent prices from getting too low.
Other countries who are considering legalizing cannabis may want to consider these points too. For example, medical cannabis is surging in Australia, much like it was in Canada a decade ago. And Australia's Green Party is campaigning for recreational legalization in the upcoming federal election. If that election produces a coalition government, legalization might be on its agenda. They could look at our policies and hopefully improve on them.
Meanwhile, in Germany, the previous government legalized recreational use, but not sales. So Germans must grow their own plants or join a club that does. Commercial products are sold only through the country's medical cannabis system. Unsurprisingly, medical use is soaring there. Based on what my research suggests, Germany will likely see similar usage growth, whether it allows stores or not. But allowing stores would mean consumers could buy products from licensed sources instead of illicit dealers.
Canada's cannabis legalization was controversial at the time, but Canadians say it has become a memorable part of Justin Trudeau's complicated legacy. It's the only part I want to remember, to be honest. Now that he's no longer prime minister, that's something he and his biographers can contemplate.
Yeah, I am. All righty, there we go.
There we go.
We got them all in. And
I don't know about you. I mean, I find it curious if they said, like legalization didn't really produce a lot of new users. I'd really, honest to God, have to argue that. Being the green sheep of my family, others did use it, but I'm the loudest green sheep in my family for sure. And and I'm talking about extended family. I had a lot of family that, were in the forces, are in the medical field of some sort. And October 16, 2018, and October 17, 2018, I was bombarded with messages and phone calls going, what do I do? How do I do? How do I use? How do I make better? What do I do this? What do I do that? And these are all from people that, until the government said it was okay legally, they shunned me. They don't bring it around us. Oh, that's bad. That's devil, blah, blah. And like I said, the day before and the day of legalization, they all became new users because it was now legal.
Oh, yeah. There'd be new people added to it, but there also might be people who dropped out. Maybe some users died. I don't know. But they just base it by the numbers, right? So, as far as myself, I know within my own family, probably I know that I've had one try, but I don't think they continued, and I believe it was more for their spouse who was dealing with cancer.
Yes.
Yeah. So that'd be why. All righty. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. Have a great day.
All right. From the news, this is our Pace News Report for today. Thanks to our buds at Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City Hydroponics, and At-Eze.ca. And in closing, we'd like to say thanks for watching. Plus, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.